Hello and welcome back to Genesis Designs and Modelcraft, and today I have a quick look review on the Airfix 48 scale Bristol Bulldog. And yes, I know I'm late to the party, but I've only just got one. I picked this one up off Amazon of all places. I was looking for a Lysander because clearly I'd like to get a Lysander to review and indeed to build. And this popped up, so I bought this instead. I got it for the very princely sum of £16.95, I think it was, with a few quid postage, so around about £20. So there's a decent saving on the retail price. Unfortunately, the same seller has put their price back up to normal now, and it didn't seem to stay low for very long at all. Anyhow, here it is, finally. I was very, very interested when I saw this was going to be released. I do think the Bulldog is a lovely looking aeroplane. I built the ancient 72nd Airfix kit years ago, and I really, really enjoyed it. That is one of their better olden days kits, incidentally. So, enough of that. What do we get in the box? Beautiful box art as ever. You've got the options on the side. I haven't even been in the bags yet. We're going to do this together. So there we go. Big bag of sprues there. Instructions and decals we'll look at in a minute. Separately wrapped transparencies. Good job. And we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different frames here. Let's try and call them frames today, and we'll start with A because we like to do things in order around these parts. I notice with the newer toolings, Airfix have taken on the mantle of the likes of Bandai, and that cannot be a bad thing. There's a humongous stencilified A on this rack, on this frame, which will make it very, very easy to find them when you're rattling around in the box looking for the next part. And that can only be a good thing. So what do we have on frame A? Clearly a pair of fuselage halves, tailplane, propeller, some bits of internal framework and some engine parts. Let me have a closer look. And initial impressions are very, very good. That is some beautifully fine detail. Panel lines, etc. It does suffer from donutitis where the Zeus fasteners are, and you all know by now how much I like that, but it's easily remedied, to be fair. Nice fabric detail. Airfix are one of the few companies that don't overdo fabric detail, or even rib tapes. That's not too bad at all. Flipping it over, a little bit of subtle detail on the inside. There's a ye olde Airfix rough surface texture there on the inside, but nobody cares about that because it's on the inside, and it's got the sort of tab and notch style location rather than pins. Everything here is reasonably cleanly moulded, nothing too terrible. The proliferation of sprue stubs on these parts is always irritating because these are quite slender, nicely moulded parts, so chopping all these monster stubs off is going to be a pain. And then of course we have some engine pieces here, again with many sprue stubs. I'll just give you a look at the commendably fine panel line sort of detail there. Very, very nice. Onwards and upwards to sprue. Oh, sorry, I'm going to keep doing this. Frame B. Wings. More precisely the upper wings. Control surfaces, some undercarriage parts and some wheels. Bit of struttage down there as well. The wheels have got really nice represent that basically these wheels are spoked like bicycle wheels, and then they have these fabric covers on them. I think Airfix have done a nice job actually of representing that there, and more really quite appropriate and subtle fabric effects there. So you've got your upper wing moulded in 2 single pieces. There are some handy ejector pins on the inside which will need to be trimmed off. These are going to interfere with the fit if they're not trimmed off. But since they're on the inside, you just need to trim them off. There's no requirement to make good the surface. And you can see here on the underside the characteristic bulge where the fuel tanks live here. And some more very, very petite, nicely done, can we call them panel lines, the sort of joints between the wing panels and bits and pieces. All looks very, very nicely done. And another point I'm noting, there are some holes, some predefined places to put your rigging threads already moulded in. Nice touch. So that's frame B, and again I'll give you a little close up there of that nice panel detail. On to frame C. A little bit smaller, and this obviously has a proliferation of the smaller, finer parts. Got engine cylinder cover, sort of. We've got some machine guns and barrels, we've got gun sights, lights, generators, a bit more struttage, an instrument panel here, pilot's seat and internal parts, and some comedy tiny bombs should you wish to arm your Bulldog. There's the pilot's seat and instrument panel. And over here, machine guns and barrels, which have a representation of the cooling holes moulded in. Frame D, purely the lower wing sections, again moulded in full span, top and bottom. Again with the very fine detail, the moulded in positions for rigging lines, and the nice representation of fabric detail, including the sort of winglets and the leading edge area. All very, very nicely done. And this one does not suffer from enormous ejector pins on the inside either, which is nice. And finally, we have frame E, which is just engine cylinders. Upper decking of the fuselage, the rudder, with an integral navigation lamp, and all the cylinders, which are moulded in halves. It's a potential annoyance to some because the cylinders are very much on view on this aircraft. Close up of the cylinders, and then a close up, because I think it's worthy of it, of that upper decking and rudder. Very, very nicely moulded. That's all the grey plastic parts. The clear parts are not numerous, as one might expect with an aircraft of this nature. This is frame F and contains just some lamp lenses and that small windscreen. I saw a comment that the windscreen appears short shot or badly moulded. It isn't. It is actually asymmetrical on the real thing, so don't panic on that one. But that's a lovely. There's a lovely finish on these parts. They are extremely transparent, which is good because you want your transparent parts to be transparent, and it's nice that it's separately bagged to help avoid damage. That's it for the plastic parts then. So I'll have a quick scan at the decal sheet typical Airfix, and that I think has to be regarded as a good thing these days, honestly. Very, very tightly trimmed carrier film, which is even more useful on a predominantly metallic finished aircraft. Stencils, yes, even 1930s biplanes had stencils, and instrument panel decals here up in the top corner. Very, very thin, really well printed, crisp, clear, nice colour rendition. There's really nothing wrong with Airfix decals these days. They're some of the better ones, frankly. Okay, so let's have a scan through the instructions. Folded in half to fit in the box, which just makes smaller instruction booklets, really. Look how big it is, A4. So, as ever, bit of history there, with some specs to start with. More of the same, and your assembly icon instructions at the bottom there, so to tell you how to work the instructions. And it's done in this 3D shaded format that Airfix always are nowadays, and it does look quite complex at first glance, doesn't it? So we'll begin. Proceedings will begin with the office, pilot's seat and the cockpit area, which I have to say looks very complete. Just going to have to hold it in my hands because it won't fit under the shot. There you go. Build it all together with those side frames into a complete little assembly, which then gets sandwiched between the fuselage halves. Colour call-outs throughout are obviously for Humber paints, but they don't have a key for all of the paints anywhere in the instructions. Continuing, joining the fuselage. Drill some holes if you wish to fit a generator. Not always fitted apparently, as a generator for the radio equipment. A little scrap view there to show you that the tailplane needs to be level. Cylinder fairings all going on around the nose, gun barrels, etc. Just a lot of little detail parts going on around the nose. Then assembling the upper wing and fitting of the struts. Now the struts all have quite nice large locating portions and equally quite nice solid strut points on the wings, so you should be this kit should be able to build up into something relatively sturdy as biplanes go. Joining the upper wing, a few more struts and details, and then attaching the undercarriage again with a handy little scrap view to show angles. Then we shall build the engine. As this is an exposed engine, there is a fair bit of detail. Some variants of the Bulldog did have a cowling. Maybe Airfix might be releasing some finished Bulldogs at some point with said cowling. And the propeller, the tiny bombs should you wish to fit them. Windscreen, and a few final details with another scrap view showing locations and orientation of parts. Then we have a rigging diagram, and it's a lovely, large, easy to see rigging diagram. This is good. Other manufacturers could take note of this for sure. The lines are dotted where they go behind the drawing. Nice and easy to understand. Very, very good. More rigging, undercarriage braces, control wires. And the cabane strut rigging. And here they've chosen to further explain it by giving you lettering. Get under the pit, giving you lettering to show you exactly what goes where. Although it is reasonably self-explanatory, to be fair. And this is where I should have looked at the instructions before I started this, but you saw me take it all out of the bag. They've done the same for the entirety. So this initial diagram is the big picture, and then it's broken down. And again, everything's lettered to show you exactly which wire starts, where each wire starts and ends. That is a brilliant set of rigging diagrams. Kudos to Airfix, that is very, very good. I'm impressed. And I was happy with the first picture. On to the provided colour schemes then. We have 3 of them, and scheme A is a Bulldog of number 3 Squadron based at Upavon in Wiltshire in 1929. This is of course the cover style with its lovely green stripe. It does have an olive drab or dark green upper decking area to provide a little bit of extra interest to the finish. And bear in mind of course that the aluminium panelling around the nose of the aircraft was regularly quite highly polished, and as such it is distinct from the fabric covering on the rest of the aircraft. Scheme B, also from Upavon, a number 17 Squadron aircraft with zigzags, otherwise basically the same. And for the third one we're going overseas, and this one is from number 1 Flying Training School of the Royal Australian Air Force at Point Cook in Australia in the 30s. Again, silver lacquer dope overall with the metal areas left unpainted, and this time without any sort of flamboyant squadron markings, and in some ways all the more attractive for it for some reason. So there we have it, a quick look review that was actually quick for a change. What a lovely little kit. I'm very, very pleased to have finally got my hands on one, and there's no real mystery as to why I haven't. I'm simply too thrifty to pay full price for things where I can help it. $28.99 is the retail price for this kit at the moment, and I don't think, having seen it, that's really too far wide of the mark. It seems to me to represent quite reasonable value for money. The aircraft saw relatively widespread usage with the RAF. There are quite a lot of markings out there if these don't suit, and there are decal sheets that cover some of that. And there was some foreign use as well. And I do think it's interesting that Airfix didn't choose to include the markings of Douglas Bader's aircraft, since this is probably what most people think of when they think of the Bristol Bulldog is Douglas Bader. But again, that is covered in other decal sets. So in summary, yes, it looks a lovely kit. It looks like it will build up into a lovely model. Indeed, those that I've seen finished would serve to reinforce that. And I do think the price is actually quite reasonable given what you get in the box. That's it for this one. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you as ever for all of your support. And with all of that said, I think it only remains for me to say, until next time, look after yourselves, look after each other, and Genesis out.